John Hynes said it himself. It was a good week. It started kind of rough, but the Minnesota Wild rallied to win 3 straight games, and now they take their talents out west. We'll recap all of the John Hynes tenure so far, some of the things that have impressed us the most, and what can still be tweaked on today's episode of Locked on Wild.
You're Locked on Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, this is Brandon Duham, and this is Locked on Wild.
What is happening, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Locked on Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you, as always, for making Locked on Wild your first listen each and every day. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms so you don't miss out on any new content throughout the week. Today's episode of Locked on Wild is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. On today's episode of Locked on Wild, Alex Micheletti joins us to ring in the John Hynes tenure, which has included 3 straight wins, convincing performances all around. And we'll take a look at some things that I'm sure Hynes is going to take a look at as the team heads out west for another just weird schedule quirk featuring 5 straight games against Pacific Division opponents. My name is Seth Topal, your daily Minnesota Wild insider. And ladies and gentlemen, we have officially hit a Victory Micheletti Monday. Alex Micheletti is here. It looked dicey for a while that we wouldn't get one for, I don't know, the rest of the season. But after we recorded on Sunday, we were hypercritical of more of the same, a game against the Detroit Red Wings that the Wild just looked lifeless. Dean Evason gets the boot. John Hynes is in, and it looks like a completely different team. So, Alex, let's talk about the Hynes tenure so far. A lot of really good stuff that we've seen through these first 3 games. What have you noticed from Hynes? What's impressed you the most about what we've seen from the Wilds since he took over?
Yeah, it just seems, more aggressive style play. And I'm sure you saw Joe Smith's tweet, but he's he's actually playing, his top defenseman with the top top offensive line too, which I don't know. With Dean, it didn't seem like that was happening all the time, and so it was nice to see that. And a guy like Matt Zuccarello, just no matter how the season is going, he continues to put up points in every game, multiple points. He's got the longest scoring streak going in the league right now. It's just impressive for the 36-year-old. And guys just, look at Freddie Gaudreau too. All it took was a goal for him to score, and he's playing with so much more confidence. I think it just they needed a kick in the butt, and letting Dean go, maybe that's all it took, was just to get a new voice in there. And it's kind of on the players now too. So I think everybody needed to look themselves in the mirror and say, we have to be a lot better. We're not playing to the standard of of teams last year and the year before that were 100-point teams. They aren't living up to what they've been doing. And so it just guys playing with a lot of confidence. He has a lot of belief in Marco Rossi right now. And look at, another 2 goals from Marco, and cool to see Brock Faber on the power play. Dean would have never done that, so that was awesome. Awesome to see too. I really enjoyed that, and seeing him produce on that. So a lot to be excited about, and it's gonna be this isn't going to be an easy road trip. So,
Nope.
it's good bonding for the new coaching staff, or, part new coaching staff. And, I think the goalies are just, the goalies are playing really, really well too. I mean, Marc-Andre made some amazing saves today, and, Gustafson, did, in his previous start as well. And so, yeah, it's, just got to keep it going, because, they really dug themselves a hole to begin with. And now they got to continue to climb out of it, and, keep up with, like Winnipeg is, right in front of them. So keep it going.
Yeah, some of the things that I have liked about Hynes so far is he has come in and he has, it's the same team that the
Hmm.
Wild had under Dean Evason. So it's not like they made huge sweeping roster changes, but you see the difference in Hynes just continuing to say this is a league in which skating fast and playing quick are the things that win you games. And for somebody who, when we came in and we talked about it on this show, I talked about it when the news came down that that Hynes was going to take over for Dean Evason. Talked about how he coaches a kind of a similar style and structure while also playing fast to what Dean Evason did. But we're seeing that, I think, some time away from the coaching circles, and by time away, I mean like one off season and into the next season. So it's not like it was a huge amount of time, but I think some time to just reflect. And Joe Smith wrote a great article about Hynes going back to some of his previous players and just asking some of the things that he needed to improve upon. And I think one of the things that he is best at is just being a communicator so far. But not only that, this guy's a war general on the bench when he gets into a game situation. Hearing some of those stories about former Predators players, how detailed Hynes is and how he can break down what opponents are going to do, and just basically tells the players, like, here's what you need to look for. Here's what the other team's going to try to do. Not only that, I love the fact that through these first 3 games, we are getting a sense that top spots in the lineup, and by top spots, I mean top minutes, are earned. They're earned by merit, not by equity. And that was a huge thing with Dean, is that he'd have his guys and they're going to play 20 minutes a night, regardless of if you're winning or losing. And what have we seen? The biggest change is minutes since Hynes took over. You've had the fourth line guys who are playing on average in the 3 games. Listen to this. Connor Dewar in the 3 games since John Hynes took over, averaging 13 minutes, 34 seconds a night. Under Dean Evason, it was like 8. Brandon Duhaime is averaging 13 minutes, 12 seconds per night. And you go and you look at, for instance, Pat Maroon, averaging 12 minutes, 58 seconds per night of ice time. Marcus Johansson, he's down to 14 minutes, 39 seconds. Ryan Hartman got 14 minutes in the first game that he played since he came back from that suspension. Marcus Foligno averaging 14 minutes, 42 seconds per night of time on ice. John Hynes is going to give the guys that deserve it the most ice time. And you look at the number totals even against the Chicago Blackhawks, who had the most minutes for forwards. Joel Eriksson-Ek, Kirill Kaprizov, Matt Zuccarello, and I think Matt Boldy was 4th. Marco Rossi was just behind what Boldy got. Those were, with the exception maybe of Matt Boldy, those are the guys that played the best. And so to be able to see a lineup where you say, okay, the best guys play the most, but it's not just like, let's play line 1 here, let's play line 2, let's play line 3, let's play line 4. He's double shifting guys. He's putting different lineup combinations together. This guy is like, he's coaching like he is operating a battalion in the Civil War to
Sergeant
win
Hynes.
games. Yeah, he just, the tactical stuff that he does is just fascinating to watch, because you're seeing just some little subtle tweaks. And so what I wanted to kind of talk about as I was driving back from the game was what to do about the second line. But honestly, I think that's a line combination that's probably going to stay for a while. But then you see those in-game adjustments to where Johansson maybe isn't playing as much with Boldy and Eriksson Ek. Kirill Kaprizov got a shift in there. It's just some of these little subtle tweaks just to see if you can kind of get things rolling outside of that top line. And I think that's the biggest difference that Hynes brings that Dean Evason didn't. Well,
another thing too is, I mean, guys aren't getting overworked too. I mean, that's so key too, because it seemed like some of guys were getting worn out just because, Dean was trying to keep his job, yeah. So that you could tell. I mean, we don't need Kaprizov playing 22, 23 minutes. It's just, for a guy that, we still don't know if he's going to be anywhere near 100%, the rest of the season. So you just don't want to wear out guys. So that's another key difference that I've really noticed as well.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. This team is watchable again. We're having an enjoyable time watching them. They've outscored their 3 opponents since Hynes took over 13-3. And not only that, but you're seeing the makings of, I think, this really effective combo on the top line between Kirill Kaprizov, Matt Zuccarello, and Marco Rossi. So I want to dive a little bit more into that as we continue today's episode of Locked on Wilds after this. Today's episode of Locked on Wild is brought to you by Sleeper. A new NHL season brings all sorts of possibilities, whether it be Marco Rossi scoring 2 goals, Connor Dewar getting a hat trick, or someday down the line, the Minnesota Wild hoisting the Stanley Cup. And you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked on NHL Network. Sleeper is our #1 choice for daily fantasy sports and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you have to do is pick whether elite players like Connor McDavid, Alex Ovechkin, Sidney Crosby, or Nathan MacKinnon will record more or less than their Sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, or more in a given game. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Welcome back to today's episode of Locked on Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked on Wild your first listen each and every day. The audience continues to grow on a daily basis. Make sure that you are part of the continued following for Locked on Wild so that you don't miss out on any of the elite conversation on YouTube, or especially this week with late games, any of our Locked on Wild After Dark postcasts, midnight or later, we'll be there with you. So make sure you tune in on the conversation by subscribing on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms. Seth Topol and Alex Micheletti fully soaking in a victory Micheletti Monday after a 3-0 week for the Minnesota Wild since John Hynes took over. And Alex, before the break, we teased talking about a top-line combination. And I know, quality of opponents,
terrible.
St. Louis, Nashville, and Chicago was not great.
No.
But I think the fact that the Wilds thoroughly beat all 3 is something that should be encouraging, because even a week ago, we went into that St. Louis game and I predicted that the Wild were going to lose to the Blues 5-1 because there was no confidence in anything that the Wild were doing. And so the fact that they won all 3 is huge. Marco Rossi, Kirill Kaprizov, and Matt Zuccarello in those 3 games, 4 goals and 11 combined points. And that line really feasted on Chicago. And so I think we get some encouragement because Marco Rossi continuing to look the part, getting an opportunity in the top 6. It doesn't look like he's going to be moved out of that spot anytime soon. John Hynes heaped some praise on him after the game, deservedly so. And he just Hynes seems like he's a big Rossi fan, which I think is huge for his development and continued placement with the likes of Kirill, Kaprizov, and Matt Zuccarello.
And the encouraging thing is, I mean, he's looked good at 5-on-5 and special teams. That the tipping goal was phenomenal. That was excellent. I love his hand-eye coordination is just phenomenal. And that Mrazek's been in the league for a while, and for Rossi to get that one by him, that was super impressive. And just guys are playing with confidence, like I said early in the episode, and that makes a whale of a difference. Is playing with confidence and knowing you can go out and beat any level of competition. And the most impressive out of the three was the Nashville, because they don't play well in Bridgestone Arena in there, and or historically, and they just gave UC Saros just a complete beatdown. That was something else. And the Blues too. The Blues are such a weird team because the Wild beat them, and then they just destroyed Buffalo, and then they lose to Arizona. You just don't know what Bennington you're gonna get either, too. Which is it's like he kind of has like the Randy Moss. I'll play when I want to play. It's like I never would have imagined I would have compared those two, but it's just. You never know with because he's quite the head case most of the time. But the Wild are taking advantage of playing bad teams and beating them. They aren't playing down to their level, which they've tended to do in a lot in the past. And they got a new coach, and they just want to keep the winning streak going for Hynes.
Yeah, might as well. And it's been the early leads, I think, that has been impressive. They've taken an early lead, and I know Chicago had a little life out of the gates on Sunday, but once the Wilds got that early penalty kill, there was
life out of them.
Yeah, there was just no looking back. And I find it interesting too. I talked about this a lot in the postcast. I talked about this during the game as well. For all of the hype that Connor Bedard brings with him everywhere that he goes, just because of how much he was billed and how much he is compared to the likes of Wayne Gretzky and others. Awfully quiet game with Brock Faber and Marco Rossi kind of outshining him in that win. It seemed like those two are making a ton of plays. Bedard had a couple plays, but
nothing
huge.
He kept his point streak going on the road, but Faber and Brodin put him in a just lockdown. That was impressive. And they just they gave nobody on that Chicago team any room, and they allowed Fleury to make clean saves. There wasn't a whole lot of rebounds either, and this team is really motivated to try to get him to get the win streak past Patrick Waugh for second all time, which is just crazy to think that when you hear Patrick Waugh too. I mean he is. Fleury's gonna be he should be a first ballot Hall of Famer once he's eligible. I mean, the career that you don't see it a whole lot in this day and age. A guy going number one overall as a goalie, because just that that position has so much quality depth that you can find Hall of Famers in the 7th round, 6th round goalies, just they're so weird in all sorts of ways, and sometimes takes longer to develop. And maybe the Wild have another one in Jesper. You see that he's leading leading that league in save percentage, and it's awesome to see that they have one in the hopper coming too.
I wanted to, as if anybody wanted any more reason to get hyped about what John Hynes has brought to the table, take a listen to this quote from, I believe it was Joe Smith's piece talking about Brock Faber and Marco Rossi. Here's Hynes' assessment of them having just taken over 3 games in. What I noticed with them is not just the talent level, but both guys can skate. It's a skating league. You have to be able to play quick and fast. Both guys can do that. But just their maturity level as players. They play both sides of the puck well. I think when they have opportunities to make plays, they have some poise and confidence with it. And when they don't have the puck, they're able to check well, and that's been nice to see. And I think if you have those two combinations and you play key roles, That's important to be able to do. It's not something we saw a ton of with Dean either. And I get it. You are going to live and die by your veteran players if you're a coach in the NHL. But it seems like Hynes has come in and he said, we're going to need these young guys to be able to step up and to help if we're going to get anywhere the rest of this season. And so it's been a lot of fun to buy into that and to see that so far through these 3 games. But the thing that I think will eventually need to be looked at, and I know I kind of talked about this already, and just some of the in-game tactical stuff that we've seen from Hynes so far. I feel like in order to really get Matt Boldy going, there's probably going to have to be a little bit of a tweak done to that second line, because there are 3 players that don't have a point yet since John Hynes took over. And one of them is Marcus Johansson. And I don't know.
Becoming a major problem.
I don't know what the right answer is for what to do and who to put there. I mean, I'm going to always stump for my guy, Brandon Duhaime, to get those types of opportunities. But it feels like at some point, that's just a spot in the lineup that you need more from. And it's great that they've been able to, that they were able to ride the Kaprizov, Rossi, Zuccarello line against Chicago. But you'd like to have a second line that can offer you something like we saw with Boldy, Eriksson Ek, and Johansson last year. We haven't seen it this year yet. And I don't know what the answer is for John Hynes, what the right thing to do is there, but it feels like at some point they're going to have to address that second line wing spot opposite of Matt Boldy.
Yeah, I mean, maybe a guy that's playing really well under Hynes, maybe move Dewar up there. I mean, give him, both him and Duhaime, they are pending free agents. I don't think they want to play on the 4th line their entire careers either, too. And so that elevate them, get if they don't want to stay with the Wild, they at least get the tape on for every other team. But both of those guys have been playing really well under Hynes. I don't know what it is, but he's pushing the right buttons with those guys, and maybe some of these guys aren't playing as tentative either, too, and not gripping the stick and just going out there and playing and not overthinking. And so I don't know. It's you got a couple guys that are playing center that maybe could move to a wing. It's just it's not working with Johansson right now, and continuing to play with Boldy is it's not helping Boldy's growth and development right now. And somehow Boldy's scoring, in spite of that right now, at least with Hynes.
Well, and I think that's some of what we've seen with Hynes too, is that maybe you're not getting entirely everything that you want from that second line, and so you're limiting their minutes and just saying, hey, 4th line's playing really well right now, we're just going to continue to push with those guys, and some subtle tweaks to the lineup that we've seen just in game.
And you can afford that when you have a lead too. This Wild team chased for so many games against Dean, and that that changes everything, strategy, who you're putting out there. And because when you're chasing, it tends you're having guys play more minutes than they should, or or you have because of that you just don't know where to play a John Merrill, and he gets out there and right away when he made that just colossal almost mistake where he just almost owned gold Fleury, I tweeted it out and I messaged you. I was like, what in the world is John Merrill doing? Thank God that wasn't a playoff game.
I completely lost where I was. And I was sitting up in the box, up in the press box. And as soon as I saw that pass go through, I was like, oh my God. Like he's lucky. He's fortunate that Marc-Andre Fleury wasn't playing further up in the crease like he tends to sometimes do.
That would have went off his heel or in.
Exactly. It would have hit off of his heel and gone in for an own goal. And I don't think that would have been enough of a momentum killer to have the Wild lose. But
how about the other one too? With Spurgeon getting nailed and having to leave the game, Alex Goligoski, I don't know, he continues to somehow get power play opportunities, but when he got elevated to PP1 and they almost had a breakaway, the other way, and Goligoski was way too slow to. I mean, that could have been a disaster, giving up a shorthanded goal off the opportunity. That was, it's like those two. You like have to have a sigh of relief when they are able to get back on the bench after a shift without giving up a goal.
If Bill Guerin wants this team to go anywhere in the postseason, I think you have to find a way to do something with that pairing. I mean, Bogosian is what he is, but he at least is, I think, aware enough of what's going on to not make those types of plays, because Merrill had one behind the net too.
Yeah.
He had one behind the net where he just passed it out to the front to nobody.
What are you doing?
It ended up being taken away by the Blackhawks, and they got a quick shot on net, and thankfully Fleury was able to make the save. But it's like, my guy, you got to be aware of where the puck is going. Oh, yeah.
If that's Colorado, if that's the Stars, oh my gosh, they blood in the water.
I was furious at the near own goal. Like I can't sell that enough. What are we doing here?
Yeah,
but again, not ideal, but hey, another win, and it sets up a 5-game road trip against all Western Conference teams, which means games at 8 or 9, or maybe even later than that.
Get the Mountain Dew going.
Oh my God. So we'll take a look at that as we finish today's episode of Locked on Wilds after this. Today's episode of Locked on Wild is brought to you by Indeed. When you're drafting your fantasy team, do you ever wish you could do the same thing with your business team? If you're building a roster to win the league, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. With Instant Match, as soon as you sponsor a post, you'll get a short list of quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description, and you can invite them to apply right away. Indeed knows when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/lockedon to start hiring now. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon. That's Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Final segment of today's episode of Locked on Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked on Wild your first listen each and every day. We appreciate the shout outs anytime we get them, including Minnesota Wild fan line. Shout out to Denny from Prior Lake for the shout outs. And
hey,
yes,
Denny, you were right about Dean Evason. I promised you I would bring you up in the next episode that I was in. And so you're right. It was before Christmas that Dean was let go. And there you have it, Denny. Shout outs everywhere for you.
Yeah, big ups to Denny for continuing to be one of the drivers of this Locked on Wild bus. And we will sent the official invite out to Father Pat to hop on. Unfortunately, not able to do it today as we're recording this. The timestamp right now is 12:52 a.m. Night owlish, but we'll get him on at a normal time. And hopefully we'll do so soon. We're gonna put some big wheels in motion for a ton of guests coming up, including a couple of repeats that I think people will really enjoy. So keep an eye out for all that, because we're going to be out west all week long. And the list is expansive and features some intriguing games, Alex, on this trip. It starts with the Calgary Flames, who are above the Minnesota Wild in the standings right now, at least in the Western Conference. It's at Calgary, at Vancouver, then at Edmonton the next night. That's a back-to-back. Then Sunday against Seattle. 8, 9, 8, and 8 are the start times here for this weekend. I think I'm most intrigued about this Vancouver matchup on Thursday, but let's not sleep on the Edmonton Oilers, who have really started to pick things up themselves, and you got to face them on the second night of a back-to-back.
Not ideal playing Connor McDavid on a back-to-back. You better, night before, better have short shifts. I would try to limit Brodin and Faber's minutes just to be ready to go for that one. If you can get a lead, against Vancouver, just let the third and fourth lines play a lot.
You might have to win it. You might have to win it 9-8, but
right. Because you don't want to, because if you lose against Vancouver and then you get Edmonton, you don't want to lose 4 points off that swing in those back-to-back ones. This is such a huge week for the Wild to keep climbing the standings and get back there. And you can't maybe before seeing this upcoming week, maybe take Calgary a little bit lightly, but they just beat Dallas the other night,
right?
Which so that if you beat Dallas, that means you're playing good hockey, no matter what. If you're beating a team like that.
I'm just looking at some of the numbers here, and minuses on some of these guys. Holy cow. Jonathan Huberdeau, 15 points in 24 games. He's a -11. Ton of penalty minutes for this Calgary team too. So let's make sure that we don't get anybody in position to potentially get game misconduct. There will probably be some physical play because that's just how it goes. And Calgary's not certainly fleet of foot. But let's not try to do anything reckless to where then you would be stuck. Thankfully, though, roster-wise, it looks like Vinny Lettieri will be coming on the trip. So if there's an injury, something else that happens, you at least have that backup. And he's looked good in instances in which he has been in the lineup. So this is just a test your mettle road trip for the Minnesota Wild. And all of this stuff that we've seen over these last 3 games has been great. But I'm really intrigued, not that I would ever root for it. I'm really intrigued to see some of the tactical stuff that John Hynes pulls out when the team is not leading going into the third period or needs to try to kind of rally back. And
we haven't seen that yet. So yeah,
5-game road trip is probably a spot in which you're going to see that a couple of times. But hey, if they continue to get early leads and hold them, I'm fine with that too. It'd be nice to see kind of what he pulls out of his hat. Whereas previously we saw, okay, we're going to go to a line blender. No, that didn't work. We're going to go back to the lines that we used at the beginning of the season. Like some of the in-game stuff was just the areas I think where Dean was not able to really get it done. And so it looks as though Hynes is going to be better there. So whenever we do see that, let it rock.
I mean, it's special teams is going to be huge, I think, in this road trip, because you're going to be playing some really, really high powered power plays. I mean, you look at Vancouver, it's a juggernaut. The way Quinn Hughes is quarterbacking that power play, and JT Miller, Elias Pettersson, Brock Besser. That's one guy I feel so happy for, just with the difficulties that he was dealing with personally. It's so nice to see him the playing the way he is. And an underrated guy that they picked up in a trade was Filip Hronek. I don't know what Detroit was thinking getting rid of him, because their back end still needs help in Detroit, but that was huge for for Vancouver, and they they have probably the tallest D pairing I've ever seen in my life now with them acquiring Nikita Zadorov. It's Zadorov and Tyler Myers. So yeah,
Jeez.
6'8". I mean, it's just it's unbelievable. Yeah, that you couldn't find a bigger pairing anywhere else in the league. So that'll be interesting to see how they navigate that one. And Edmonton is just, you can't, you never can take a shift off against them offensively. And yeah, it's gonna be interesting. And Calgary's like St. Louis. You just you don't know which team you're gonna get.
Edmonton's fans stand up and cheer when their goalie makes a save. So that's
Bronx cheer.
The keys for this road trip: start strong.
Yep.
Attack the opposing goalies and ride the hot hand.
Yep. Yeah. If the goalie, if Fleury gets a win, or same thing, you just keep going. Playing Fleury today was the right decision, though, just because it's a good confidence boost too. He's so close to passing Patrick Waugh too. So yeah, exactly.
4 wins away.
It could happen before the end of the year. We didn't think it would, but now it could. So yeah, it'd be fun to see him do it at home too. So we'll see if they strategically kind of do that and find an easier opponent for him to get that done and make sure he has family there and everything. So kind of just pre-plan it,
Fleury watch.
That's we can look back on this season, and if they don't make the playoffs, a special moment like that is huge. It was so emotional last season with Goligoski. Remember when he got the overtime winner and his legs are up in the air. That
doing
was
the
one
splits against the boards, and he's like,
that's one I will never forget from last season. So hopefully have something like that this season.
Somebody's gonna clip that thumbnail that I just did, and I'm gonna become a meme because that was some kind of a face. I'm not gonna bring any more attention to it than I already did because there are meme hunters on the internet that are gonna take that and turn it into whatever. But
one thing we know is Wild Twitter, they just it's amazing what some of them can find and use as content for sure.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't be the first time my face has been memed, so we'll see. But that'll do it for today's episode. Again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day and becoming part of just a rapidly growing comment section
so much,
on
everybody.
YouTube, whether it be Denny, whether it be Trav, whether it be the Mikes, whether it be Tyler, whether it be we had Swiffer Wetjet Mop that had a comment on one of our last Locked On Wild postcasts. So no matter who, we thank you all for tuning in each and every day and continuing to ride with us through this.
You guys have me writing in Russian. I've been doing Google Translate and trying to reply to our Russian viewers. It's amazing the power of YouTube. Getting across the world, and we appreciate the people that listen on the podcast too that have found Locked On. It continues to rocket ship. It's so cool. I mean, I know Seth and I have responded back and forth to somebody in Ireland too that always listens. So we really appreciate it. It's so cool to see the viewership continue to grow.
Yeah, and the next part of the progression is getting shout outs on Minnesota Wild fan line. So we appreciate it. And onward and upward as we continue through this season. We'll see what happens on the road trip. We'll be back with you for more episodes throughout the week. Alex will be back on Monday. So make sure to tune in to all of the Locked On Wild content you can handle because there's a lot of it. And we continue to keep it rolling here throughout the rest of the season. You can find new episodes every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.